Good evening and welcome to Nerds at Night Gaming. As always, I'm Kid Thunder DJ, joined by
Sheree Vondelaires.
Fireheart is still at work, so we didn't really want to wait till 11:30 at night to record this, so he's just out of luck this time. Which is good and bad because there's a little bit of an emotional start to this. Obviously, you can find us where you've always been able to find us, facebook.com/nerdsatnight, Twitter @nerdsatnight, nerdsatnight.com. All of those are spelled N-I-T-E for night. But getting back to the point I just made, the reason why we haven't been on in a while is in October, basically the very beginning of November, my mother, who's obviously also Fireheart 47's mother, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it was in her brain, it was in her bones, and it was in her lungs. So we took time off to focus on spending time with her, and also the emotional stress and toll between that and the holidays and the dealing with our kids on this subject just sort of left us in a position where this really wasn't that important. Unfortunately, in January, on the 9th, our mother passed away. It was a short battle, but, now she's at peace and now she's not in pain anymore. And, the only time she would ever be quiet in this house is when we were recording, because she got a kick out of the fact that Fireheart loved to do it so much. So, we're ready to go again, and we know she'd be proud. So just wanted to let you guys know where we'd been and that, we weren't trying to ignore or anything. We just had to do our own thing for a while.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yep. So anyway, but let's move on to happier things. We have still been busy with the retail side. We did the, December and January Toyman Toy shows. Not the best shows, and really, I realize December is that show where people go for that big gift, that hard-to-find gift for a collector. So I always expect December to be a little bit shaky for me, but I usually have a pretty good January. And truth be told, after trades, it wasn't terrible. But it wasn't, like, if I had to have survived on that month, if it wasn't a freebie month for us in terms of how much money we need to make, we'd have been done. So it is what it is. But there is something that came out of the January toy show that I want to go ahead and turn the floor over to Sheree to explain, because she's going to explain it better than I could.
Yes. I was up at the toy show in January. Had a lot of fun. Went to the December one, too. And I was there with my best friend and cosplay partner, Fangdina. If you ever read my blogs or any of my craziness, you'll hear that name a lot. And you're going to hear it even more because she and I are going to have our own table at the toy show starting in March. We plan to be at every toy show this year with the exception of May, because it's the same weekend as Anime St. Louis. But we are really happy. We formally formed ourselves as a cosplay duo, as there's two of us, and we are calling ourselves Twisted Sister Cosplay.
Can't even say your own business name.
I can too.
Now wait, I do have a question about this name. You said Twisted Sisters, right?
Yes, Twisted Sisters.
So,
it's a Grey's Anatomy reference.
And because it's two of you?
Yes.
So we're only counting physical people, not the voices in your head.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
the voices would be a much larger number.
Well, it still counts under, the plural of sisters, but it's like, you said duo, and I just want to make sure which.
Yeah, we're talking physically.
Okay.
But it's a Grey's Anatomy reference.
So we're talking to Sybil now.
Yes. And you can find us find that page on Facebook at Twisted Sisters Senchi. So.
Good luck with that one, folks.
Well, I'll put a link up on the Nerds at Night Facebook page for it. Yes, I will.
No, she won't. Yeah, she will. She probably already has. I don't know. I don't watch the page half the damn time anymore anyway.
I have noticed that. I feel like I run the page more than you do.
I wouldn't go that far because I still do all the shares and I still do all the blast outs. I just don't do much posting anymore because I don't blog much. Although there's some other news about things that are coming to the site soon, and that is, and I've actually already posted show 1, Breaking Politico has gone up.
Yes.
My, I get tired of ranting to idiots one at a time, or, a couple hundred at a time on Facebook, so I figured I'd open myself up to rant to more idiots at once.
Tens of idiots.
Right. Literally tens of people who listen to this hopefully will give it a try too.
Tens of people who listen to that.
Right. Now, I do want to preference, it's not preachy in the same way that I think I'm right about everything. In fact, I go out of my way, and even though I consider myself an old school Republican, which in today's political climate puts me more in line with modern libertarianism. I do my best to look at what was going on with the shutdown and what was on the table for the DACA deal and look at it from the standpoint of, well, with the political moves that were made, right, wrong, or indifference, what was done right, what was done wrong, what could be a positive for not even for the programs themselves, but for the political gain. And I actually ended up for putting Trump over on a few things. I mean, there was things I called him out on and stuff. It's an interesting show. It's not going to be the best sounding. I recorded it myself this time. I didn't have the fancy. We just got the fancy set back up to be slightly better, and we're hoping to improve it more. So hopefully audio quality will finally be long-term better soon. But it's, something I'm doing just for fun. And if you download the episode, please go to the Facebook page. Just search for Breaking Politico on Facebook and leave us comments. I say it in the podcast and I'll say it here. You can leave mean, ignorant comments all you want. Thanks for the material. Because I will destroy you, whether it's grammatically or whatever. But if you actually want to leave a valid point, even a dissenting one, presented with respect, I have no problem airing your opinions as well. And maybe in the future I'll look into ways to bring some of the more conscientious and respectful dissenters on, because that's what I want. I want to have a space where, okay, yes, we all can hate this candidate or that candidate or this president. And, I took shots at Obama too for the things I didn't agree about that he did. But we have to boil down whatever policies are made to how does this affect us and what do they get out of it? And that's what I'm hoping to do. And it'll get better as time goes on. But that's enough on that.
Yeah. Also getting back to the toy shows and whatnot.
Yeah, we're doing other shows. Oh, my God. Well, you're doing a lot of other shows. I'm doing one.
Yeah. We will be out, if this gets up in time, hopefully, DJ.
Well, it'll go up tonight.
Be out. Okay, good. So we'll be out, DJ and I will be out at Toys R Us booth out at Wizard World St. Louis this weekend. I am going to be cosplaying Sailor Pluto, so if anybody wants to get their picture taken with the world's shortest Sailor Pluto, who is over the age of 18, feel free to come out and see us. Just stop. I see the look. Just stop.
I'm like, well, I'm sure I could find something on the interwebs. It is the internet.
I'm sure. But also, Faindian and I, Twisted Sisters Cosplay, will be out at NakaCon in March, and Fireheart will be tagging along with us.
What a sad way to say that. He's like, okay, yeah, Fireheart. Technically speaking, in the hierarchy, if we were a Real Z radio show, he'd be the co-host. For local audiences, he's the Tony Vitrico to the, Rizzuto in this deal. And until he gets to that, then he's like, yeah, now he's the lackey.
Right, because I'm your wife.
Yeah, no, it's just more you're the one with the money.
I am the one with the money in that scenario.
Right.
So we will be out at NakaCon. That should be a lot of fun. If anybody I know that Fireheart is going to be out as Adam Taurus, like he always is, and hopefully adding a second cosplay. We'll see if it gets here in time. And Faindane and I will be out. I'm going to be some form of Haruka Tendo Sailor Uranus all weekend, and she's going to be mature most of the weekend. So it should be a lot of fun if anybody wants to hang out, talk, pictures.
Now, for
preferably not throw, food or something ridiculous like that, but whatever.
Now, for those who don't know, NakaCon is held where?
It's an anime convention in Kansas City.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear.
I believe it's actually held in Overland Park, Kansas, though.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. So, anyway, moving on from that, we also have Anime St. Louis coming up, and this is the one we're all going to be involved in.
Yes.
To some capacity. Now, there's a total of how many panels are you planning to do?
I will be participating in 3.
Okay. And then the one panel that involves all of us is the villains panel.
Yes.
Right. And
yes,
that
we're
panel...
going to be talking about villains across anime, gaming, and pop culture.
Right. And not only the types of villains and their different degrees, but formats of how villains are used and, episodic villains where it changes every week to full season or full show arc villains versus... short-term arc villains who, once that arc's over, they're done. And it's not in service of any other hidden,
right.
master
and I'm
villain.
going to need some help with all that research, DJ.
I know. I'm already on it. I already got my parts done. Or at least the outlines for them, I should say. Obviously, I don't have the... we still got a couple months. I don't have all of the stuff done. But the idea is, and that is coming to point, I'm going to focus a lot on video games and other media because I feel like they do pull from tropes used heavily in anime and comic books. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Right. And I'm going to propose what I believe is the best method of and the best example of uses of villains. And, not to spoil it too much, but I'm going to be, let's just say a lot of the Paul Dini universe is going to be coming up.
Yeah. Well, you and myself and Fireheart are the ones doing the villains panel. Fireheart and I are going to be with Faintina doing a panel about original characters.
Really? Because, y'all do that, so yeah, that makes sense. Right.
Hey, you know what? You don't realize it, but you do it too. You do it too in your wrestling.
Well, no, those were characters that if I wasn't a short, fat Irish guy, I would have played. They were conceptual characters for
exactly.
myself. But
they are original characters.
They don't exist in a world. They're not like original characters I'm interjecting into a world.
I would argue with
technically
that.
One of them
especially since you always put them through your season modes and things, and they become world champions. One
of them does exist in real life. I actually gave the conceptual character of DJ Thunder to someone to use. I think he used it for like 2 shows and said the hell with it, but because he couldn't, pull off the thing, but he had the look. It was one of the few people I ever met who matched the old school Irish guy look. But anyway, that's enough of that. That was a tangent way off there for putting way too much effort into creative wrestlers. But speaking of gaming, obviously we just got through the holidays, so some games came out then.
Yes.
And January is always a big release time for tax time, so a couple of the games I've picked up, and the big one I'm going to review first is DBZ Fighters, so the one thing that Dragon Ball Z fighting games have always had trouble doing is actually capturing the feel of the show. There's been great fighting games using DBZ characters, but then you watch the phonetic. It just seems like they either go too slow-paced or too fast-paced. They couldn't find that in between. Yeah. And this is what was one of the sort of groundwork premises of this game was they were going to do that. They were going to find that holy grail of the right mix of action and speed as well as dramatic parts to build up to this Dragon Ball Z like event. Or like game. And I know it's getting good reviews. I gotta say, honestly, it's fun. But it's more to me like they just took the worst of the last 2 Marvel vs. Capcoms and put DBZ characters in it.
Now see, and I have not played it, but I've watched some video footage of it. Yeah. And that was what made me excited because it reminded me of Marvel vs. Capcom because I actually stand a chance at winning in that game.
Well, you do, and here's why. Here's some of my complaints. You are literally, no matter who you're playing one character. Because everybody's got the same combo button sets, the same move button sets, within reason. I mean, there's very slight variations, but when I say very slight, it's still, you have your light combos, your medium combos, your light attack, your heavy attack, and then your, when your gauge is full, your big Kamehameha attack or whatever it is. And the animations look great, well, inside the fight. Outside the fight, I've noticed, and this could just be a problem with the Xbox One X. I haven't asked Fireheart because he has a regular Xbox S when he's played it, if it's done it for him. But in cutscenes, you can see skipping in the frame rate because I don't know if it's because it can't keep up with the higher power of the Xbox One X, so it's chugging a little or what, but the in-story character cutscenes just look terrible.
See, the video footage I saw didn't look like that, but maybe it...
Again, like it could be a problem with the One X because of how... I've noticed some games, even when they're supposedly One X enhanced, it takes an update or two before the graphical bugs are worked out. And that was one of the things that apparently had plagued the game during development was trouble with graphics. So, because they're going for that hand-drawn or animated look, very similar. And I was like, just get the guys from Cuphead. They did it right. They did that whole idea perfect. Just get them in on board. But, I will say the story that I've played so far is kind of cool. I like the concept of it and how they're kind of incorporating that you're playing as you, but you're also playing as all the various Z fighters without doing the Xenoverse thing where you just introduce a random new character that you're playing or whatever. I mean, it's got all the ingredients to be good. It's just going to take some time. and hopefully they fix it. Hopefully it stays well received enough. All right, and by the way, we're still sorting out the new space, so if you can actually literally hear like thumps in the audio, it's from where I'm using my computer, and we didn't have time to set up a secondary table, so it's on the same table as the microphones. So I apologize for that. I'm going to get a mat or something to help reduce the vibration. But yes, another interesting thing about DBZ is obviously any game like this that comes out on a computer, you get data miners. And data miners port through all the files associated with a product with the goal of finding hidden data. What's going to be unlockable characters? Is there unlockable skins? Is there discarded parts of the story? And in this case, they found what they believe to be at least what could be future DLC. Now, some of these could be just avatars for the menu screen or the lobby screen where you spend most of your time between story mode missions and just doing fights. But it does look like an interesting list. There's Brawly, Bardock, Zamazu, Vegito, possibly with blue form, Base Goku, Base Vegeta, which I'm guessing is just them outside of Super Saiyan form.
Right.
Cooler and Android 17. And it's the Ranger version of him, which means it's the super roided up Android 17. So, and of those ones, Cooler and 17 were the ones that people were listing as possibly just being avatars.
That makes sense.
And this is from IGN.com that we found this. So, hopefully there's more. I haven't seen where you unlock too many more fighters in the story mode that I'm in. And so far, it looks to be the same number of characters outside of story mode I have unlocked. So unless something changes and there's characters specifically for outside of story mode that can be unlocked later, it's pretty anemic roster for the amount of characters they can pull from. But I don't know. That could be out there somewhere and I just missed it because this was one of those games I kind of decided at the last minute to get into.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway. And then it's not on the list, but I figure I'll give a quick rundown on it anyway because I've gotten enough time into it. Monster Hunter World come out as well. I love the Monster Hunter games in theory. I always wind up picking them up and at least giving them a try. And for better or worse, I usually enjoy them, but I usually don't go too crazy deep into the handheld ones because there's so many technical problems that after a while they just get frustrating. And it's like super complicated with, oh, well, you need to have this level of pickaxe to get these things because it'll only last X number of swings. And, you know, traveling around can be a little bit difficult. And I'm proud to say they fixed so many of those issues in World. Like, so many things are simplified to just, okay, you can catch these things and you can mine for these things and you don't need special things to do it. And if you want to go back to the campsite in the area you're in, you can fast travel to it. And, I mean, it's definitely geared up for multiplayer online, which all of them are, so it makes sense. But it's a lot of fun. The combat is as fluid as it's been in any of the other versions. The customizations seem to be a little bit cheaper, which is good because, you know, that's too much grinding in a game like that's going to turn off player base pretty fast. So, all in all, I definitely of the two, if you're wanting something with more investment and more, you know, worthwhile to play, I'd definitely go for Monster Hunter World.
But if you just want to beat some things up...
Yes, if you just want to beat things up in a 3-on-3 fight where you do get to see some cool characters that haven't been in games before, you know, Breezes or whatever the God of Destruction is, Hit from the Dragon Ball Z Supers in there. So, you know, you get the blue forms. If you get the Day 1 edition, you can have them right away. You get the blue forms of Vegeta and Goku. So, I mean, there's good stuff there. It's not terrible. It's not, you know, like Sagas or any of the other shitty ones that came out in the past. It's just not, it's in my mind, it's not what we were hoping for.
Like I said, I like the idea of it.
So I was going to talk a little bit about Black Lightning because it was interesting because it's another DCU show on what may as well just be called the DC Network at this point on the CW. But
right?
I think I'm going to turn this one over to you because you had a little more time to read the reviews on it than I did.
Well, I read some of the reviews. I watched the trailer. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but apparently it came out a week or two ago.
Yeah, it's only had one episode in.
Yeah. But it looks really good. I like that it's not just your average, here I'm a teenager and suddenly I have powers and now what do I do with them show. You know, this is, you know, spoiler alert, you know, Black Lightning is a man who has lived and who's had a life, and he put the mantle up, and then now you get to find out why he took it back down, and how, you know, one of the things that was pointed out in the review, that one of the reviews I read, was it will be interesting to see how he balances all of his, you know, more adult responsibilities and more responsibilities than a lot of your average superheroes have.
Right. He works as a principal, correct?
Yes.
He's not, like, the cop-out for adult heroes in a lot of these shows is they kind of have no-notice jobs, as I call it.
Yeah.
The one with the most demanding job seemed to have been Kara in Supergirl.
Yeah.
And even then, there's still plenty of times she could have operated without her boss's knowledge.
Absolutely.
But he is the boss, and not like a big business boss. He's, you know, he's a principal. He's got to be there, you know.
Yes.
9 hours a day, he's locked.
Yeah, whereas most, I mean, you have your reporters, well, they can go on location, they can be researching a story, or you have, you know, a photographer, or you have whatever. You're right. Most of them have an under-the-radar job where they could slip away from their main job location if needed. But unlike them, Black Lightning, yeah, he's a principal. I'm sure there are opportunities, but not nearly as many. It's not nearly as easy to just slip out of the school and not tell anybody where you're going, or lie about where you're going and not have any kind of fallout for it.
But that'd be kind of cool to see, you know. To me, I get the feeling this is a DC version of shows like The Punisher or Jessica Jones, or, you know, over on the Netflix side, which is typically Marvel. So if I slipped up and said a DC person in there, I'm sorry. But they're more, even though he's more power-based than obviously those two, it still seems to be like it's a heavily reality-driven show.
It is, because he's focused. It's not always aliens or this nuke's coming toward, you know, our city or whatever. It's from what I've seen, what I read and what I've seen, it focuses on gang violence in his city.
Yeah, and that's also kind of one of the themes, and I just dawned on me when I was searching for Luke Cage. Deals with a lot of that, too. So, yeah, this is kind of interesting to see how this show's going to fare on network television versus a streaming service, and hopefully it sticks around.
I hope so, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. It just, I like the real feel it at least presents from what I've read so far.
Right. So I realized something, and this happens to all gamers, and I'm going off script again, but this is because, you know, really can't, you know, block this out just talking. I was looking through the games a couple days ago that I have, and I'm not one of those people who in the modern era keep a game forever. I know it's silly because I know what collector values can eventually be, but in most cases I play a game, I get my money's worth out of it, and it goes along its merry way for more games.
Right.
I destroyed the GameStop system.
You have.
By their own admittance, I've destroyed the GameStop system. Just stop redeeming things. It hurts.
He's not lying. I've been there.
Because here's a pro tip for you guys. You can't redeem $2 coupons of the same value, but you can redeem every other coupon of every other value. So when you go in and stagger them all out, and you got $100 off because you took the time to sit there and redeem enough points going 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up, they don't like you, but you get your shit.
I don't know. Some of the guys like you. I think they respect your playing of their game. Right.
And the fact that, you know, I buy a bunch of stuff and it makes their store look good.
True.
But no, I was looking, and this is how much we've had stuff going on. I realize there's 2 or 3 games I haven't even played yet, at all. A couple of them still in the package. Wow.
Are they a couple of them you got for Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did finally break down and and install Fallout Game of the Year and Evil Within 2.
That's good.
Well, actually, technically, I did Evil Within 2 right before I got the Xbox One X, which was great because when I was doing the transfer, I'm like, wait, I haven't played this yet, so there's no save data or settings. Not moving this one and save myself, an hour for the transfer for 90, for 9 something or however, a lot of gigabytes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just an interesting thing, and because I look around our den here where we have tons of other stuff not taken out of the box. And not just...
Yeah, but some of that's... a lot of that is because of collector value.
Some of it, yes, but then there's the DVDs and stuff that I'll go through as well. And this is you. I gotta have this DVD, and it's like, why? You don't watch it. I will. A month later, I go through trying to find a movie I want, and there's a stack. Like, I'm just starting to make a separate stack of your movies that you've never opened.
And if, for whatever reason, we end up in a situation where we don't have streaming service, guess who will still have things to watch?
I have tons of things to watch. I download porn like crazy. I'm good.
Well, you enjoy your porn. I'll actually enjoy movies I can watch around the kids.
I have those too. I have a whole series of Red Dwarf. I have, the entire... I have the entire Ninja Turtle series, the entire Paul Dini Batman and Superman series, Justice League.
Yeah, your son was watching watching Batman the Animated Series tonight.
Well, yeah. Most of really, I bought them as in I was the one who was like, oh, we're buying these, not, they are just for me. The only ones I'm protective of are the ones that, like Reboot and Gargoyles, that are hard to find.
Yes. Protect those from the children.
Right. Reboot, Gargoyles.
Watch them maybe with them, but
yeah.
they don't handle them.
Sam and Max, Freelance Police.
Sam and Max. I may have actually called our youngest kid a hyperkinetic gravity thing.
Right.
But he is.
But it was just an interesting thought that, we want all this stuff so bad, but if it all comes out in such big clumps that sometimes stuff just sits.
It does, and sometimes we buy it with every intention of getting to it, and then something in life happens where we don't.
I know.
Like with your games. Very good reason some of those games hadn't been opened.
Right, yeah.
Things happen. But it is kind of funny when you find it 2 months later. Oh yeah, I was going to watch that.
Oh yeah, and then, of course,
I was going to play that.
And then Brandon or Fireheart made it worse with, "Hey Dustin, you should try Path of Exile." Oh, okay, what is it? Well, it's basically Diablo 3. For those playing the home game, I might have damn near reached WoW addict level of.
Damn near.
I turned it off and walked away. They're true WoW addicts are still playing their characters they started way back at the beginning.
Okay, I'll give you that one, but still.
Right. And just for frame of reference, I rarely play games more than a couple hours a night. I may be down in my den, but most of the time I'm watching something and just working on other stuff. So I managed to get through the first 4 acts of that game. So the 3 main acts of the core game, and then the first act of the expansion in 2.5 days.
Yeah. When Diablo comes up, I'm like, bye, honey. I love you. I'll miss you. Don't forget to write.
Yeah. So, and that's always the sad part is because it reminds me of that meme where it's like a guy and a girl, and then there's the guy turning to look at another girl, and people have been just putting different things over the girls. It's like I'm walking down with Evil Within 2 and looking back at Path of Exile, or looking back at Stern Pinball, or looking back at Monster Hunter or DBZ Fighters, or
right. So many games.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many fish in the sea, so many games in the den.
There is. So this is basically my way of saying I may not be around. No, I'm kidding. But no, I just brought that up because if you guys hear this and you want to go over on the Facebook page, post what those kind of things you really had to have gaming or movie wise that then just end up sitting on your shelf, and you're like, I'll get to that someday. And I think it's worse with movies because movies are maybe a 2.5 hour commitment tops.
Yeah, but
and you're not bound to having to watch it while you play it because in most cases it's something you've already seen. It's rare you get a movie just because you missed it. I mean, I guess not really because they have a whole market.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, it's just that they have a whole market built around what they expect movies to do after theater. But you get my point. In most cases, the people who bought it already liked it. Renting it, on the other hand, could be people who just wanted to see it later.
Right, and then you want to see it, so you get it from Redbox because it's only $1 or only $1.50 or whatever it is now. And then, I didn't finish it, so I'll pay for another day. And then suddenly you've had it a week, and you're like, well, damn, I just should have bought it.
Right, I know.
Love you, honey.
Uh-huh. And you see, that's the purity of YouPorn. There's none of that. There's none of that, $1 a day. That's, just that's the purity of YouPorn. There's none of that. Anyway, but let's move on from one form of pornography to another, wrestling.
Right.
Big goings on in wrestling. I'm just going to focus on two of the biggest things because to really go all the way back to November and go forward from there, we'd be 4 shows in. Right. Oh, shut up. Because some of this is I need your opinion on as a woman.
He said shut up because I pretended to fall asleep.
I know. And they could probably hear. But anyway, the big story, one of the first 2 big stories was Enzo Amore being released from his WWE contract.
Yes.
Now, here's the background for those who don't know. Enzo Amore was accused by a woman, I believe in Phoenix, Arizona, of rape. And apparently this investigation had been ongoing since October. But the story broke about a week ago. And that's when WWE management, well, actually, they found out the day before Raw 25, so last Monday. They found out, obviously, he never told them. Now, that's something you would do at any job, but very specifically a job where you're put in a prominent position,
very public, featured
on television. I mean, take away what he did. I mean, this could be, I got drunk and smashed into the side of a building.
Right.
Let's take it off of. Don't worry, we're going to come back to the other part, but there's a lot on there to unpack, and I know you don't have all the details off of you and on what's just been floating around because a lot of this is all internet hearsay from people who claim to be involved. So you have to take it for what it's worth. But let's just look at the fact that you're a person in a position in an entertainment-based business, and you've done something that's going to involve heavy police presence in media. Okay?
Yes.
Tell the people you work for.
Absolutely.
Because WWE doesn't like bad publicity to begin with, really don't want bad publicity on the level of the stuff that he's accused of. And then you mix that in with the fact that they basically were building the cruiserweight division around him for the ratings, and that's just 3 shots to the head.
Yes.
The rumor was Enzo showed up at Raw 25 and was literally told by Vince McMahon, "Get the hell out of my building."
I don't blame Vince.
I don't either, because when you factor in that he's accused of rape, drugging and raping a girl, no less, with someone else. Now, someone who knew this girl has produced text messages from a friend's phone that he took pictures of that shows that it's from this girl saying that, she knew what she was doing and everything else and was all happy about going to bed with a famous wrestler and everything else. So that's where the muddy waters come in. And but then you go back to why didn't he tell them?
Exactly.
Now, you can look at it from the standpoint of, is he guilty? And I don't like doing that, especially in the climate we live in now of sexual accusations are almost worth more than convictions.
Yeah, especially in the entertainment industry.
Right. There are a lot of people whose careers are over who have never been convicted of anything. Now, there's some who have admitted to what they've done. Louis C.K. and a couple others have owned up to their mistakeful behavior and are trying to, make amends. And whether it's for their career or not, at least they're trying on some level. But there are a lot who haven't. And I'm not taking away that that they could be guilty or probably guilty or whatever. It's just the fact that if you're looking at this purely from a standpoint of the reaction of our society, sometimes all you need is the accusation.
Yeah.
And there's other things that have come out. Brian Alvarez has mentioned that there have been reports that Enzo, who, let's be honest, it really wasn't hard to see, wasn't in love with being a pro wrestler. He wanted to be in entertainment. He saw wrestling as a way to do it, to get his foot in the door. He actually had interest in being a rapper and an actor, and I heard he was actually starting to get some rumblings on both of those fronts and went out of his WWE contract. So, you could theorize that, he knows he's innocent or believes he's innocent or believes he's going to get away with it or whatever, but knows that, they go over all this stuff with you, so he knows there's a morality clause in his WWE deal. He knows that that this would be a violation of it and that he could be fired anybody who spent 2 minutes around people who've spent 2 minutes with Vince McMahon knows that, if he can't control the situation, he wants no part of it. Not being told is the ultimate form of not having control in this scenario. So he's out. Free and clear. He gets clear of this charge and he goes off on his own way. I don't think it's worth the price of admission because in the culture we live in, even if you are found innocent, even if the person recants, there's a stigma.
Yes.
Oh, he paid her off, or they intimidated her, or,
right. How
social.
do we really know?
Right. But hey, if it gets him out of it, it gets him out of it. But hopefully we'll find out more in the coming weeks. And, if he's guilty, I want the justice system to do its job. You always hope he's innocent because you don't want someone to go through that.
Exactly.
What's your opinion on it? I mean, what do you think about... I mean, I included a link with some of the information about what's going on. Mostly that he went out of his WDD, but it did include some background on the case itself.
Well, I feel the same way you do about not wanting to pass judgment, but I also agree that he was being in the industry he was in, being in the position he was in, he had an obligation to report it to his employer. He had an obligation, and he failed with that obligation at the very least. If he did it, then he deserves to rot. But if he didn't do it, he should have had the ethics, the personal ethics, to come forward to tell his boss, this is what I've been accused of. Whether he did it or not, I didn't do it, because typically most people don't admit that they did it.
Right.
But I wanted you to be aware.
Right, and that's, I think, going to be where, if he does go down for this, and taking another devil's advocate scenario, let's assume he's innocent, but still goes down for this. That's going to come against him.
Exactly.
The fact that he hid this from a very powerful company who, if they believed his innocence as well, could have stood up and said, no, we're putting our resources behind this guy. We've looked at the evidence, we've investigated, we don't believe there's merit.
Right. He could have gained a lot, no matter the outcome, from having come forward. He stands to lose even more, no matter the outcome, because he didn't. Right.
And that's where time will tell with him. So, let's move on to some of the other big night or big news in wrestling. And actually, it's not on this sheet, but it looks like former women's and our former divas, and NXT Women's Champion Paige is forced to retire from injury.
Ouch.
She had just come back after spending almost a year or actually over a year, out of competition because of her neck. At a house show, she did this spot with Sasha Banks they do a lot, where she got drop kicked in the back of the head, which why would you do that anyway, and appears to have re-injured her neck. And it's, when you hear neck injury in wrestling, it's almost always the same injury. It's usually, you herniate a disc or whatever, or a vertebrae, and eventually the wearing and tearing of what's done to fix it causes stenosis, which is this weak sort of paralyzation of the bone and tissue and stuff. That it's what's retired Edge, it's what's likely going to retire Sheamus in a few months if therapy doesn't get it better. It's the ultimate, in the modern era of wrestling, it's the ultimate career killer.
I could see that.
So it looks like, now there's been no formal announcement other than a neck injury has her out of action. I think the WWE are going to play it as smart as they've been playing everything lately and leave it up to their doctors, and their doctors are probably going to err on the ultra-conservative side, which means she is probably done, but as of right now, there's been no official announcement. So that's sad. And she was a very good performer, both in the ring as a talent and out of the ring. And it kind of, for the level of talent and what she's done in her career, unfortunately, she's also going to be infamously known for some real black marks, some her fault, some not. Her relationship with Alberto Del Rio and some of the drama that went on there, including, incidences where police were involved in domestic matters, and then they had a pretty, negative breakup, and a couple of times they got back together, although their final breakup was relatively quiet. So, and then also in the ring, she had some, unfortunately, she came along right at the tail end of the diva era, so she was, as great as she was working with a lot of underqualified women. When she finally had a great opponent in AJ Lee, then we all know what happened with AJ Lee. She left when Punk left. And then when she was working with Charlotte, it was around the time of Reid Flair's death, and they forced her to do the Reid Flair comment that she made about him dying that was completely uncalled for, and that they're weak, not blood, like in my opinion, at no point do you ever go that classless. But Reed was in the business. Flair's synonymous with the business. It would have been forgivable to a fault if it would have been farther down the road and for a real, like, old school, unsanctioned by the promoter kind of at the end death feud. You know, you'd have brought that out for Flair versus Rhodes or Flair versus Steamboat or Flair versus Steam. You don't bring this out for Charlotte versus Paige. And then that, you know, that's ambling on about a topic, but it still just kind of shows how much, unfortunately, a great talent's career is probably never going to be what it was and never be regarded in the way it should be. And that's what makes that all the more sad. And finally, let's switch to what wound up being very happy news, the Royal Rumble Sunday night.
Yes.
You know, every now and then, and especially if you follow the times I decide to live stream these events, or live tweet these events, every now and then the WWE remembers, oh, it's more about building up fake celebrity links and part-timers. We gotta build a business here and tell a story so that people want to come back. And they damn well did it at the Royal Rumble. No match was bad. Some matches were awkward, but I accepted their awkwardness because they still told stories in those matches, so it made sense. AJ Styles retained in his 2-on-1 handicap match, that was going to be the one match I thought was just going to be garbage, because 2-on-1 matches are garbage. There's almost always no way to book it where somebody doesn't look bad. And they got away with it this time. The match ended when there was a phantom tag that the referee called between Zayn and Owens. Zayn was still technically the legal man, but was thrown out of the ring. Owens was rolled up by Styles. 1, 2, 3. Styles retained the belt, and then the ref decision was made final. They were yelling at Shane McMahon backstage and looked at him and said, "Hey, did you see this?" And their whole thing is the "yep" movement, and he went "yep" and moved on. So it's like they're continuing the story of Kevin Owens being screwed by the system, which is, I mean, hopefully it wraps up, but is definitely heading to a match at Mania with Shane, which, hey, Shane can do big crazy spots.
Right.
Owen can do the actual wrestling, so it won't be terrible. May not be a great match, but it won't be terrible. And Zayn will fit in there somewhere. And probably in some capacity, Daniel Bryan, although I'm getting the feeling that by this point, with as much time as they would want to build him being able to be back in the ring, at this point he's probably going to be in like a ref role or something. So,
yeah.
Maybe a 2-referee match where you have Zayn as Owens ref and you have Bryan as Shane's ref. We'll see. Anyway, the men's Royal Rumble match was an excellent Royal Rumble match for going on like second or third in the card. Not a heavy on surprise entrance. The Hurricane of all people was the haha entrance they always have every year. Rey Mysterio came back. He was the big surprise return for non-WWE talent. Cien Almas from NXT, who's the reigning NXT champion, came in, and even though he was still selling being beaten the hell up by his opponent from the night before, Johnny Gargano, he still went at, I think, 30 minutes plus in the match and put on a great show.
That is impressive.
Adam Cole, baby, made an appearance selling his injuries from his match from the night before TakeOver. So a lot of great talent was in. The winner, shockingly enough, because it came down, and it was great story, and this is what I mean by every now and then they remember storytelling, because when it got down to the final 6, you had this great sort of crossroads of where WWE is at right now. And on one side of the ring you had John Cena sucks, Roman Reigns, and Randy Orton, and on the other you had Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, and who was the other one? Seth Rollins. So, or wait, was that in the final 6? Damn it, I had it in my notes and it disappeared. But anyway, basically you had 3 what they call Triple H guys, and then you had 3 Vince guys. And they all kind of squared off and started fighting, and then there was, it had to be Reigns, or Rollins. But anyway, they square off fighting. You get the classic, back and forth with people teaming up, and then of course some of that starts falling apart, and it comes down to the final 4 being Shinsuke and AJ Styles with John Cena and Randy Orton on the other side. really scary moment because like, oh god, it's gonna be, or Roman Reigns. I'm sorry, no, not Randy Orton. Roman Reigns on the other side. So it's like, what? No, because basically, if you're a smart fan, we know Reigns is going to WrestleMania to face Lesnar. They solidified that. That's gonna happen. So you're like, but don't do it with the Rumble. We already know it's gonna. You don't need to use the Rumble to do this. You have the next pay-per-view, which is Elimination Chamber. It's a Raw exclusive. They use the Elimination Chamber that time of year always to set up the number one contender. Do it there, and that's what we got. It came down to Reigns and Nakamura. We got to see some great moments out of them too, and eventually with Nakamura getting the win.
Yay!
Some of the highlights, like when you had John Cena staring down Nakamura and he does his whole "come on" thing at him. That was great. And when Nakamura actually came out, the crowd for like a minute after he was in the ring was still singing his entrance theme.
I love his entrance theme.
And then, of course, which was great because that was also the first entrant was Rusev, and then they had Aiden English come out singing the Rusev Day song. And Rusev actually lasted pretty good. I'm hoping this is a sign they're actually going to start doing more with him because he's definitely earned it. He's been this Rusev Day thing is getting him over in a way I don't think they were expecting. And which was funny because when Aiden English came out, almost no crowd response for him on his own. When he wasn't singing about Rusev, nobody cared. It was great. And then, of course, we had Elias basically getting to do a whole song almost, singing about because everybody was down when he came out. And then this year's recurring comedy bit was Heath Slater came out, and it was right after somebody had gotten eliminated who wasn't happy. Baron Corbin had gotten eliminated and just started destroying everyone. So he was down all the way through the next entrant. Next entrant came out, kicked him as he was getting back up, got in the ring. And this happened for the next three entrants until Sheamus came out.
Uh-huh.
Well, Sheamus stops at him, and of course Sheamus helps him up, puts him in the ring, gets in the ring himself, and boom, right there is Slater to knock him back out. So right now Sheamus has the record for the shortest amount of time in the Royal Rumble match itself. Thrown out by the guy he helped in. And then, of course, Heath Slater went right after him. So,
well,
great.
Good.
It was a great comedy spot that worked. And when you can get a spot like that to work, then it's great. So that's the men's Royal Rumble.
Yay, Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yes,
Yay.
and afterwards, of course, they had made the formal announcement you could pick who you wanted to challenge. And they asked him right then and there. And, of course, he said AJ Styles.
Yes.
So
that will be a good match.
That's the... I've always said if you're going to have two brands, Mania, it's perfect for you to have the two world champions because you could do one fan match and you could do one mainstream match. And they're finally getting that. The fan match is AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. That's the match that the wrestling fans who, if they watch nothing else throughout the year, watch Mania are going to want to watch. And then they get the mainstream people and the people who still see wrestling as this larger-than-life thing like it was back in the day that it can't really even be anymore anyway because of drug testing and everything. Excuse me. You throw them, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar.
Right.
And I can live with that.
And we just watched Brock Lesnar stomp Roman Reigns
Well,
into the ground.
Unfortunately, his contract's up, and he wants to go back to UFC. He kind of wants to.
Oh.
He wants, this is all rumor mills, but they've been fairly accurate before. But I think getting popped for performance-enhancing stuff the last time kind of left a bad taste in his mouth because he won, but it doesn't count and everything else. So I think he wants to go back one more time, do it clean, or as clean as he can do it, and try to go out on the high note of winning clean. But we don't know. You never know. UFC made it under the new ownership group since the Fertistas are out. He might not get the chance to. They can say all they want. Oh, yeah, we believe in Dana White, and we're going to let Dana White do things his way. But you bring in somebody with the wrong kind of past that could hurt the corporate image of the new equity group that bought them out, and they can go, no, they still own the thing. They're still the owners.
Right.
So we'll see. But speaking of which, Lesnar obviously retained. As soon as it was a triple threat between Strowman, him, and Kane, everybody knew no matter who won, Kane was eating the pin. And sure enough, Kane ate the pin. I hate to see the big red machine fall, but at least he got the match, so hey. And he stayed competitive throughout. It wasn't like he was the old man they were fighting over who gets to pick off. He was in it through the whole thing. So
good.
Over to the female Royal Rumble now. This one was the one that worried me, not just because, it's girls, but because, A, they don't have 30 women on the roster. So you knew there was going to be NXT women, pretty much the entire NXT women's division had showed up in some capacity, and a lot of legend returns. I wish they would have gone out of their way more and gotten more indie talents, and in the weeks leading up to it, did like network drops where they, sort of like they did with the Mae Young and Cruiserweight Classic, where you have these interviews about them and, oh my God, I'm being given this chance to see if I can make it, rather than rely so much on some of the veterans they brought back, because some of them just couldn't hang.
I can imagine that.
And due to Alicia Fox's injury, they actually put Vicky Guerrero in the match. Of course, it was a comedy spot where she just came out screaming, "Excuse me," over and over again, and then all the divas in the ring dumped her out. They treated Nia Jax like they've treated Big Show in the past years, like, oh my God, it takes everybody to eliminate her, which is what happened.
Yeah.
Sasha Banks was number 1. Becky Lynch was number 2. Sasha Banks made it all the way to the final 4, I believe, or 5, pretty much near the end before she herself was eliminated. And then it came down to one of the Bella Twins and Asuka, and they continued the whole Asuka doesn't always dominate, but she always finds a way to win, which I know rubs people the wrong way who just want her to be this unstoppable killer. But my problem with that is unstoppable.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, unstoppable killer gimmicks are dead ends.
It's not sustainable. The I will find a way, that's a lot more sustainable.
You can get a lot of mileage out of it, and it makes the idea of a rematch when she does lose make that much more sense. Okay, I couldn't find a way that day to beat you. I'll find a way this day.
Right.
And because they were fighting on the apron, and Asuka was down on her back and just happened to get lucky and catch, I believe it was, Nikki Bella's knee. Which, by the way, when she entered the match, I love it. They cheered for her for a little bit just because she's been out of action for so many months, and then immediately switched to chanting John Cena sucks. Because she's engaged to John Cena. That was the best. John Cena sucks. Like, now I do it like
he doesn't even have to be out here.
Well, I've made no bones about it. At the end of last year, or at the end of our shows last year, that I felt like he's doing enough right things for the business, and when he's wrestling, he's putting everything he's got into it. I don't hate him anymore. I hated him for the same reason, and I've always been a huge Triple H fan. I hated him for the same reason I hated Triple H during the Reign of Terror. I hated it when he was winning to the detriment of future talent.
Yeah.
Like when he crushed the Nexus, and for, however long on Raw and SmackDown when he was on those brands, nobody could get the belt off Cena. And, the same reason why I hated, Triple H in 2001, the Reign of Terror, when it was like, oh my God, him and Evolution is, wow, Goldberg's ruined. Wow, Kevin Nash is ruined. Wow, Rob Van Dam is ruined, and Booker T got ruined and all that, and Randy Orton got heavily damaged, if not for a long time ruined after that. But he's not that guy anymore.
Yeah.
And his quality of work is way better. Now, granted, you can say that all that's because he's a part timer, but that's the role he should be in. What more is John Cena full time going to do?
True.
He's doing more for the company by being willing to be part time, and unlike The Rock, whose agents got in his head and said, no, you need to, the wrestling thing needs to stop. You need to not be affiliated with them anymore. That's when he was going by in a lot of his movies Dwayne Johnson, which he still does, but he's, some movies he's Dwayne The Rock Johnson, some movies he goes by The Rock. Because he's back to understanding the name value there, and it helps the business. John Cena hasn't had to go through that. John Cena has no problem being John Cena. When it's a little bit different because obviously his name is John Cena. It's not like, he's going to start calling himself Earl Michaels or something, or was called some goofy gimmick name that he's got to hide. But it's still the fact that he's not hiding the fact he was a wrestler.
Right.
And that's big for the WWE right now, because that's their single biggest modern era hero, whether we think he's a hero as a smart fan or not. For the casual fan, hero, still acknowledging the business while still trying to go out and do other things. So,
absolutely.
But we've talked far more about John Cena than I want to, so let's move on to the other thing, which was, Asuka won.
Yay! I also love Asuka very much.
I did show her. I believe it's pronounced Kairi Sane, which is another hot Asian wrestler chick.
She looks promising.
See if you can spot one of Cherie's types in women.
Shh.
And her gimmick is, of course, she's a pirate, so that made it even better because she's essentially walking cosplay.
Walking cosplay is fun.
Right. Down, girl. You're going to slide off the seat if you're not careful. Anyway.
The seat is cushioned.
That doesn't help your case any. That just means it was that bad. Anyway. But no, so and this is what was aggravating. This is the one dark spot. And I spoke on Twitter and in certain comments of the videos before. We all knew Ronda Rousey was coming to the WWE at some point. She had said after her UFC career was over, she'd wanted to be in pro wrestling. And they're not going to let a name that big, even with her diminished value, go. But the big rumor was she was going to enter the Women's Royal Rumble, possibly at number 1, and win. And she didn't. And here's why that would have been a terrible thing. Public perception is everything. Right now, she's still a big name. She's still got value. But she's still a woman who had her ass handed to her twice.
Yeah.
And the second time was disgustingly bad. Like, it looked like an amateur fighting a pro. And that's going to take a while for that stink to sort of wear off. So to have her come in first night, take out all of these women, including your current, dominant star, all in the first night, would have just literally been Vince and them saying, well, you know how we fought for years to say we're just as good as UFC? No, we're not. We let one of their worst cast-offs right now, and she is, come in and beat everybody else we've been building for 2+ years now. We've been doing this now it's Divas Evolution. It used to be Divas Revolution story. That would have been, that would have ruined everything. So she didn't, thankfully. She wasn't in the match at all. But then she comes out after the match when they've got all this fanfare up where, unlike in the men's Royal Rumble match, they actually have both champions sitting at ringside and they come in the ring and they're going to ask Asuka who she's going to challenge. And then Rousey comes out and there's a bunch of standing around and pointing at the WrestleMania sign, and she goes to shake Asuka's hand. Asuka swats it away. She goes to shake Stephanie McMahon's hand, who's doing commentary, and there's a lot of tension before they do, because the last time she was seen at WrestleMania 2 years ago, she, got Stephanie into an arm wrench after, they're at it, after they had a little back and forth. So she's definitely going to be involved, and it was announced she signed a multi-year full-time deal, so this isn't a gimmick. I'm okay with her coming in. Ken Shamrock got his ass handed to him a couple times on his way out of UFC. Brock Lesnar did too. But they didn't then turn around and, well, Lesnar's a different case. He had already been in wrestling. But even then, First thing Lesnar did when he came back, job to Triple H or job to John Cena, for punishment. He didn't get his first big-time win until he got one against, I believe, Triple H. So, Ken Shamrock, when he came in, upper mid-card right away. Wasn't just immediately a main eventer.
Right.
So, hopefully they do the same thing with her. They give her time to mature. They give her time to become the star she could be, because if not, she's just going to be the female Roman Reigns. She's just going to be that one, they just want her because of her name. It isn't about... Because I think the biggest illusion of wrestling fans isn't that we think it's real, because we don't.
No.
It's that we would hope that people with talent and drive and who get themselves over and who care about the business, maybe they're not always going to be champion, but at least will be treated with respect. And far too often it's become more clear in the modern era that it's just whoever the boss likes.
And it's all about the branding and the naming.
Right. And that hurts wrestling overall, because you ignore who the fans embrace, especially when they embrace them even after the stars being treated like shit. And those are the people you want to have, because they're the ones who's going to keep the casual base coming back, as well as hopefully you nurture them till they grow into the breakouts that bring back the casuals.
Yeah.
The overall casuals, not just the regular fan base. So time will tell, but that's how the Royal Rumble ended, with a lot of standing and pointing by Ronda Rousey, which was great to see, and I'm glad it didn't happen in the match itself. But really, that was the only dark spot in that whole show. And with that, our hour is almost up. So is there anything else you want to close on?
Not anything else I can think of right away.
Okay. Well, then, our first show back, actually, I think went pretty well. Let us know what you think. You can find us at facebook.com/nerdsatnight, NITE, nerdsatnight.com, Twitter @nerdsatnight. Where can they find you specifically at?
They can find me on Twitter at C Vondeliriz, VONDILLARIZZ.
E-I-E-I-O.
Yes, I am closing my eyes because I'm visualizing it.
Right. Alphabet soup over there.
Right, or on Facebook at facebook.com/CVondeliriz, or on Instagram at CVondeliriz.
All right. Well, that'll do it for Nerds at Night. As always, have a good night, and we'll see you next time.